Hey, you're now listening to Head and Shoulders ATR, where we cover athletes, performances, and otherwise that are head and shoulders above the rest. And I'm your host, Nick, and this is Track Talk Radio. Today, we're going to do something different going forward with our format. We're going to actually talk about life lessons within these. We're going to blend the sports and what we do in actual life together, because our goal on this channel is to be number one, not only in the sports coverage, but a blend of sports coverage and what we do to build up people. So, as you've seen, what are the lessons that we can learn from the 4x100 meter? In order to do that, let's do a summary of what happened. Let's talk about the lessons that athletes can do and what these sports agencies can learn here. So in the past week, we saw a whole bunch of emotions fly. We saw it from Kimba Nelson, people slamming on Kimba Nelson. Some people coming at a lane. Overall, just the Jamaican Athletic Association, but a lot of the brunt was thrown toward the actual athletes themselves, when coaches are involved with this as well. But to the point, also going to trashing all the men. I kid you not, trashing all the men and saying, look, the men are trash on Team USA because Team USA got second in the 4x100 meter relay. This isn't just a few people. I saw plenty of people all over, from Discord to Twitter, in comment sections. So those are the things that happened this last week. You know what I want to say? Here's something that we can learn here, and that the other athletes, some of you guys that train professional athletes or hoping to do something like that, or you're on your way or you're already there. Look, Kimba Nelson deleted her Twitter, or whatever happened with that. She's deleting her social media. Look, she did what was best for her. If she didn't have, on the one hand, she's a professional, and she's transitioning to that at this point. She was a collegiate athlete, and now she's going to the professional realm. But she's still pretty young. She's inexperienced. She's grown up in our generation of, we have social media. And so if she can't divorce herself from that, if she didn't just, delete the app, but instead deleted her account, hey, you know what? She did what was best for her. Some people that are, when they go to Alcoholics Anonymous, there are two types of people that get over it's mostly two types of people that get over from their alcohol addiction. There are the people that can go to a bar, go to some place, they could take a tiny sip and they'll be fine. There are others, and I suffer from this myself, as far as not alcohol, but with any type of candy or sugar. I can't even take not one drop or one piece of candy. There are people that can't get one drop, so they prevent themselves ever from going to a bar, a club, a social event, or having alcohol near them, because they know if they see it and they just do that, they're going to go overboard. Now, Kimba Nelson may be one of the people that, hey, you know what? Deleting is not enough. I need to delete my entire account. And maybe she starts over or whatever. But if it was good enough for Michael Jordan not to have a Twitter account, it's good enough for her not to have one. Now, getting back to the USA men. The USA men lost, okay? While also, just like the Jamaican women lost, while also being the best on paper. Okay, you had the men sweep. Great, they're the best on paper. Now, you did not have the entire team there that swept, okay? Even with some of the other athletes, Coleman struggling around 10 flat. He wasn't at the best, of course, but even without the A squad, and you have some of the other athletes that are there, the USA was still far and above the best on paper, and they still lost. Would it have been different if Coleman weren't there? Would it have been different if Curly were there? Would it have been different if, you had Bromell? We don't know, because at the end of the day, we can see that here are some things that we can learn from this whole fiasco that happened. And I say fiascos, upsets are pretty good because it's unexpected. That's what brings life to sports. Sometimes if it goes by a script, And in track and field, especially, if records aren't broken, it doesn't seem as special. Look at the views between the men and the women in the 4x1, particularly from NBC. Now, if you look at World Athletics Zone coverage in other places, the men's event is still getting more views. But if you look at NBC, which they've been pushing more of the women's events than the men's events, and so the algorithm helps with that, you'll see that it's at the point of this recording 2.7 million, and the men have barely touched around 800 plus thousand or 900,000 views. So there are a lot of people, hey, it was an upset, so they went and watched the women. I've watched it multiple times myself. So now, here's lesson one that we can take away from this. Talent only takes you so far. Okay? Talent only takes you so far. Those with less talent than you, we hear it all the time, but you literally saw this on your screen. Look at the nations that are on your screen. I know Track Talk Radio is mainly listening, but if you take a moment to look at the nations on your screen. Okay, USA women. Nobody could even argue that any of the athletes there should have been able to beat Jamaica, right? Because the talent on the Jamaican squad, even with Elaine Thompson-Herah not being at the best she's at, okay, Elaine Thompson-Herah still swept. She was part of the sweep in the 4x1, so there's no argument even there. Kimba Nelson, Brianna Williams, around roughly similar speeds. Okay, you replace one with the other one, and what do you get around the same time? What, could Kimba Nelson have run slower or faster? Who knows? But at the end of the day, the talent there between the four athletes together and the talent there in the four athletes together with Team USA, on the women's side, it's not even a comparison. Same thing with the men compared to Canada. So somebody can outwork you, and we saw it here. If you let somebody work those 12 to 14 hours to learn that IT, to start early at a younger age, to build the core competency skills of speaking, of being able to build up skills, plumbing, electrician, thinking of things different, being challenged at all times. If you allow them to put in, even if you got an easier ability, for example, I could do calculus in my head, or at least I used to be able to do it very quickly like that, because all I did was do mathematics and things when I was so young, like as a small child, 4, 5 years old, and just kept going at it. So eventually that's just there. But let's just say I had that naturally. I could just look at something and I didn't just work it. Okay, if somebody else is just outworking me and all I do is say, I can look at this, then they're going to eventually surpass me, or they have the ability to do that, because I'm putting in 3-4 hours, maybe a standard 8-hour day, and they're putting in 12-14 hours, getting enough rest as they should at some point, other than just burnout, and then they come back, they're going to outwork and they're going to be able to beat me. That's what we need to know here. So when you're there, you're working on your company, working on your craft, working on whatever it is. If you're going into IT, are you going into project management? Are you going into data analysts? Are you going into artificial intelligence or augmented reality? Whatever those things are, you got to put in the work, outwork your competition. If they got more talent than you, quote unquote, then you can outwork them by putting in the work. Just like Team USA women and Canada men, they were able to outwork the faster squads because their handoffs are better. They had those relay squads, and while Team USA men did do that, they fumbled the ball a little bit on those exchanges, and they've had a history of doing that. So we know that while they might have worked on it, did they work on it to the best of their ability? That's a question. That's very questionable. Lesson number 2: the team around you can make or break you. Now, while people are focusing on the athletes and what they may have done on the day of, and then say, hey, look, the athletes, just like I said on the video just yesterday, I can't expect those athletes to just voluntarily put together, yeah, that's true, they could have done that. You know, the athletes, when they made it out of Jamaican trials, they could have said, look, let's just start now volunteering some of our time. Let's meet up and try to do this so that we can practice some exchanges when they're all focused on their individual events. Instead, how about the coaches put together events, the associations put together events that do relay camps, just like the Team USA women and most of the rest of the world. Like the rest of the world has been doing that. That's why you see a China and Japan where they get medals here. And their squads sometimes don't even qualify for even making the open 100 sometimes. Sometimes you don't even see a single Japanese or Chinese athlete on the men or women's side, yet they can somehow make the final of the 4x1. That's one. And then two, they can medal. So the team around you can make or break you. You got the potential to break us to beat somebody else, to out earn somebody else, to outsell somebody else, and then they are here destroying you. So what does that look like in our regular lives? Okay, your people. That means that could be your friends. Your team could be your friends, the workers that you have around you, co-workers that you want to latch on to. It could be your spouse or whoever else. They can get in your way of success. Any of those people can take you back. If you're trying to go, let's stick to IT, or you're trying to be an electrician and you got to put in that extra time, and they're just nagging and telling you everything you can't do, or because you're talking to them. If they're, especially your spouse, you're talking to this man or woman and you're going up to him or her and then saying, hey, look, what do you think about this? Or you just telling them about things and they just keep telling you things you can't do. I came up with a high school that was like that. We had a coach. I remember I liked the teacher when I was younger. And then she winded up coaching. She was coaching the girls basketball team or volleyball team. And then I think she coaches soccer or something now. I remember coming back as an adult. And although she was a good, kind person, and I associated her with like, okay, I like this teacher. She's kind. I came back later and she was like, well, you know how it is around here. It's just so hard to do things. And I'm just like, man, this is the failure mindset I was subjected to when I was younger. No wonder it was hard for me to do things, because every time I heard some failure mindset from whoever it was about somebody telling me, I went to the level of overconfidence and sometimes delusion to cope, so that I push through. And then of course life pulls you back, humbles you a little bit. You have some failures and then you adjust. Lesson number 3, and let's end it off here. Okay, once you are, for example, once you are humbled in a certain way, or you just have the reality, because it's not about having a big head about different things, right? Once you take your loss, once you take that L, same way here. You look at the pictures, look at Team Jamaica. They're smiling for the cameras. They still smiled and they still, celebrated. You could tell they were a little bit down after what happened. Team USA wasn't as happy, but guess what? They're at home, so they got to put on more of a front. If they were away, they might have, at least some of the guys might have, allowed some of their frustration to show up more on their face. But I've seen in the past, look, they were just happy. I remember, I think Justin Gatlin was happy before the medal got taken away. And they were just like, look, we celebrated. Hey, it was going to be hard to beat Usain Bolt, whatever. But hey, we got this medal. Then they got DQ'd. Everybody knows what happened back then. So you come away. This is what it is. You come away graciously in public and then do the work in private. That looks different depending on where you are. That looks different depending on where we are. So some people, some people would be loud. Others would point fingers and blame everybody else. We see it. They blame everybody else for their problems. And we're not talking about, the system of white supremacy, anti-black racism, or the cooning and the shucking and the jiving, or in other groups and other cultures, non-black as in white, Asian, or whatever, their own people that are selling them out or whatever like that. We're not talking about the obvious things. We're talking about when you put in some work or the lack thereof, and then you say, I had a goal of X, Y, and Z to do this many sales, and I was 50% of the mark. And let's say you put in the work. You could have just said, well, I'm going to blame this and that. Or you could come away and be like, okay, these teams face the reality. And like Shelly-Ann Fraser-Pryce said in an interview, was like, hey, look, we need to have more relay squads. We need to have a system that we have a relay system here. Because if we do, then we'll be able to, do better. Right now, we just did the best we could. We just defaulted to the same order we did last year because we were familiar with that. So that's what we did. We had some mistakes that were happening. That's facing reality, and we got the place we got. Versus, it could have been different. Like, look, Team JA, we just really did badly because of that. Because even the year before, they won, right? So still with that bad relay, not really practicing on it, they won. But this year they didn't. So it is some of their responsibility, and even if it's not fully theirs, they're taking it like, look, we could have done better, and here's the situation that's going on. And what they can do in private, now that they said some of this in public, is to work on pushing those things in private. And also that puts the association under hot seat. So you face the reality of the result, because if you don't, you can't know what to improve upon. And then you do what you need to do to improve going forward. How does that look in your personal life? How does that look with us? Well, if you didn't hit the sales, if you were taking notes about that, how much time did you spend with each prospect? How much time, what subjects did you talk about? Did you come in with a script? What did your script look like? If you didn't have a script, develop one. What were the words that you said to these people? What were their reactions? How did you go? When you spent 5 minutes with them as compared to 2 or 20 minutes with them, then what was the result after doing it? Did you actually get the sale in the first 3.5 minutes, even with those people that you spent 20 minutes with? So therefore, you could have cut it out shorter and tried to get them down to 5, 6, or 7 minutes. Did you waste so much time on something? This is what happens, and you say, okay, what can I do to improve going forward? When it comes into IT, if you're not getting it, or public speaking, or communicating, I'm dealing with a lot of people around me and trying to get them to communicate. I asked them what they learned, and this person could not tell me what they learned. They could not tell me in a coherent way what they learned. They went through, first it was awkward silence. I said, okay, I'm going to work with you. Take as long as you need to. And then they went to what they remembered. They said this person was speaking, that person was speaking. And then I joked around like, oh, you learned what the person was speaking? Yeah. So now it's, okay, what was the purpose of me opening my mouth? That's one step that we can start with. What was the purpose? What was I trying to get out of this conversation? I recommended them Dale Carnegie. And that's what some of you guys could learn from. Not the how to win friends and influence speaking people, but the art of effective speaking. Those types of things. You learn going forward. You do the steps to improve. It can be in all walks of life. And that's what I think the lessons we can learn, both for them as professionals and also us as individuals out here. What do you guys think? Do you think there's some more takeaways that we can actually take here and apply to our personal lives, and even what they can do in the associations? Leave it in the comment section below. We're going to be getting I'm going to try to do this every day, or at least during the weekdays, for Track Talk Radio from now on. At least during the track season. So I'll catch you all on the next one. This has been Head and Shoulders ATR.